Welcome, adventurers! You've made it to the Wind Down, the live stream at the end of the Geekverse. It's a chill place to hang out here as the sun sets on another day. We're here to have a little chat, reflect on the day's successes, and prepare for a better tomorrow. So settle in with your favorite beverage this evening.
May I tempt you with a cup of chamomile?
Why, thank you, Dory. I would love a mug of tea this evening, but perhaps you would rather have some coffee, though I do recommend a decaf this late in the evening. Or perhaps maybe a cold brew is more your style.
Oh, no, thank you, Dory. A little red wine. For me, I think.
Sounds like an excellent choice, Gandalf. Whatever you want, it's yours. Could I offer you a bourbon, a martini, an old-fashioned, or something perhaps a little stronger? Ugh. Well, I mean, if that's really your thing, then okay, but I hope we can find something a bit better than that.
Romulan ale. Why, Bones, you know this is illegal.
I only use it for medicinal purposes.
All right, now we're talking. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Welcome to my home. Come one, come all, writers, artists, sculptors, storytellers, board gamers, streamers, dungeon masters, fans of sci-fi, fantasy, geeks of all kinds. Whatever your fandom, you have a place here. For soon it will be time for another long rest so that we can recover our hit points, our spells, and our abilities, so we'll be ready to fight on for another day tomorrow. But first, we all need a little time to reflect, because you've survived another long, perilous day of wilderness treks, dungeoneering, and random encounters, and that's worth celebrating. Let's tell the tale. It's time for the Wind Down. It will improve your life. It really will. Give it a chance. Here we go. Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening. It is fantastic to have you here this evening. This is non-standard for Thursday night. I was really ready to have a lively discussion last night, but I went to connect my camera and my camera just would not connect. And so I was like, well, hey, let me try restarting some things. And the result of restarting some things was that I had to completely reinstall my operating system. So I didn't get to, so that was just off yesterday. So, oh, well, we're here tonight and that's all right. There is a lot going on. We're going to be talking about this idea that I had as far as game design philosophy goes that we've talked about on the live streams before about how, well, I think we've talked about this, how we should strive to have as few turns go by in an RPG as possible where the game state doesn't change. Okay, and even if you can't make a turn, even if you can't make it so that every turn something changes in the game, you should strive to at least not have whole rounds go by where something doesn't change in the game. And that means that no player should be facing the exact same game situation 2 turns in a row. Ideally, that's what I'm saying. So that, a classic example of this is something like in Dungeons and Dragons where everybody misses. We've talked about that before. Oh, everybody goes around the table, you're rolling to hits, everybody misses, and then the bad guys miss as well. And then where are you? Right? And then you're right back around, and basically nothing about the game state has changed. And so you basically have the same options, especially if the players end up with the exact same options as the result of their at the start of their turn. I think you should strive to avoid that. I wrote that up, I posted it to Reddit, and boy, that was a very controversial opinion. Lots of people want to talk about it. 300 people, there were over 300 comments on that. We're going to look at some of them tonight, or we're going to look at a number of them tonight, and then see how I can better refine my argument. Or if I'm just wrong, maybe a lot of people thought that that not having anything happen during an RPG is an important part of the experience. And we'll look at those discussions. And then a lot of people also completely misunderstood what I was saying and thought that I was therefore against failure in an RPG, which is nothing like what which is nothing like anything I ever said. So there was that misinterpretation. A lot of people thought that. But so that's our main topic for tonight. Let's say hello to everybody. I've seen Sable Phoenix here. Welcome, Sable. Good to see you. I was wondering if you're going to be able to be here tonight. And then also Stray is here. I hope you're doing very well, Stray. I hope everything is going very well your way. So let's see. Okay, so also about what's been going on, I have finally shipped all but one box for the Cultists RPG Kickstarter. So that is closed or is about to close. I mean, I asked everybody if they had any kind of problem with anything that was shipped out to please let me know. There's one more major thing that I've got to do, and that is inventory all of my remaining items. I over ordered on shirts for some reason, as it turns out. So I have some extra shirts here. I was planning on inventorying them today or yesterday, but I didn't get to it. But shortly, I'm going to do a complete re-inventory of all of everything I've got in the gaming room from the Kickstarter. And I'm going to put that up on ravenkeep.net. So if anybody wants shirts or didn't get something that they wanted, I'm going to let everybody who's on the Kickstarter know first as soon as those things go live so that they will be able to get them if they would like them. And I have what I got. Then I'll go public and I'll post to the email list and everything like that. So I am basically coming to the end of that, and that's great. I am very happy to be closing out that Kickstarter, and I will let everybody know what kinds of shirts and things like that that I have as soon as I know. And then also for the past about 4 days, I have been writing the Hacked Edge quite a bit. I spent, let's see, what did I do today? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4.5 hours. Today I spent 4.5 hours in like deep work zone working on the Hacked Edge RPG. So I was like, I've just got to plow into this. So I've been working on that. I'm looking forward to talking a lot more about that on the streams. If people want to do game design streams, I actually have more stuff to talk about and to go over and to start from the beginning of character creation, stuff like that. And so we'll go through here. So I've been working a lot. But okay. All right. So that's where I am. I'm ready to, be plowing on into new projects and things like that. Okay. So am I right? So let's go into this, this post and this theory of game design. Am I right? Am I wrong? I mean, you let me know. I could be completely wrong. I mean, that's completely possible. Is this not a good idea? Am I missing something? I think this would be a great opportunity to look at this and then see how I can revise my argument, or does my argument just fail? Or did I just word it badly or whatever? Let's find out. So, okay, so here's what I wrote on Reddit. The null result. Oh, okay. Okay, I already have partly wrong. Okay, all right. Fantastic. All right, well, let me know how I'm partly wrong. That's fantastic. Let me know. I would, let's talk about it. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so the null result as design failure. Let me turn the music down slightly. I don't want it to be too loud. Of course, maybe it's just actually my audio over here. You let me know if anything's too loud or something. Okay, so the null result as game design failure, every combat turn should change the game state. Now, like I said, I was just saying that I do think that if possible, every turn should change the game state. You should strive for at least every combat round changing the game state, I think, if you can, so that no player has to face the exact same decisions and exact same situations twice on a turn. Okay? Twice, two turns in a row. 2 turns in a row. So I have a theory that I'm building my current project around, and I am building the Hacked Edge around this. The number of rounds where nothing happens should be reduced to 0 or as close to 0 as possible. So I did use the term rounds right there. The number of rounds that go by where nothing happens should be reduced to 0 or as close to 0 as possible. If you're doing, 100%, D100s or whatever, okay, you can have a fractional percentage or whatever, but as close as possible. If a player starts their turn and realizes they're responding to the exact same situation that they faced on their previous turn, I think the game design has failed. Okay, that you need to attack that from a game design perspective. It's rather common in D&D, I've found. Okay, all the PCs miss their attack, the NPCs also miss. And so when the next PC is up, the same PC is up again, and they just say, well, I attack again. Nothing material has changed in that round. and I think it needs to. So, like, I don't like those rounds. Those are some of my least favorite rounds in an RPG, where something goes by, everybody missed, nothing really changed, and now here we are again. And I think that when you're looking at game design like this, you can look at combat resolution as your logic tree, right? So that every branch, like when somebody starts this, starts combat, how many different branches are there for something that can happen? Well, how many of those branches lead to a null result? Okay, because that's kind of a waste of time. Not always, but can be. In a standard D20 system, one of the two primary branches of an attack is a miss. If you pass that branch, then you hit the damage roll. So that doesn't mean that it's a 50% null result, of course, because your attack roll could be, require, the roll of a 8+ or 6+. So that's greater than 50% that you're inflicting damage. But it is that one of your branches is null. Oh, I attack, I miss. That's why I think that something like using to hit rolls and damage reduction in the same mechanic is a mistake, even though I am a huge fan of damage reduction. When you think about armor, I love thinking about armor in terms of damage reduction. But when you start to combine that with do I hit and then damage rolls, you're ending up with more forks on that logic tree of your turn that can end up in a null state. And from a game design perspective, let's set aside trying to simulate reality, because some objectives may be that I want to know exactly what happened with the simulation of reality. Yes, I struck you, but not with enough force to get through your armor. So the result is still nothing. Because I was saying when you stack to hit and DR, you've created 2 of 3 branches where the result is nothing happens. Failure to the hit, the failure of your to hit roll can result in a null, or if you pass the hit but roll damage lower than the DR, the result is also null. So 2 of your 3 branches result in basically nothing happens, and the other one might result in some damage. Might result in some damage because you could still find out that your opponent is immune to that kind of damage or whatever. Sable Phoenix says, I don't understand how this will be controversial. Even if not so in many worlds, it's become core to a lot of modern game design. DC 20, Draw Steel, Vagabond, Nimble, etc. Right, I do think so. So I think this has become something that is talked about a lot more in modern game design, yes. And more of an acceptable part of it. Or more of the expectation that, yes, things happen on your turn. That doesn't mean success happens on your turn all the time, but that something happens. Hey, Charlie, good evening. Welcome. Great to see you. Great to have you here on this non-standard evening. So I said the most direct way to fix this is to remove attack rolls entirely. And that's what some of the systems that Sable was just talking about have done. Like Draw Steel doesn't have attack rolls. Nimble does not, for instance. So that seems to be a way that a lot of people have gone in modern game design. I say this has been very common in certain RPGs lately. If players auto-hit, the game state changes every time somebody attacks, even if just a few hit points have been removed. And though how many hit points... I said creators there. It should have been creatures. Creatures should have as a different subject entirely. Because yes, as some people pointed out later, did the game state really change all that much if, yes, you roll to hit and you deduct 1 hit point from a 100 hit point creature? Yes. Okay. That's why I think we could introduce, this is a bit more of a subjective call, but we introduced the idea that do we have a substantial or material change of game state, right? Maybe knocking off 1 hit point off of a 100 hit point creature really isn't that materially a change. Maybe. That's open for discussion. So then I came up with a potential alternative. Now, I'm not sure that I really like this alternative, but here's a potential alternative. An alternative to auto hits could be to have the misses carry a cost to the attacker, like a loss of stamina or a significant positional change that gives the enemy some type of opening. But I'm not sure I want to go that route. I don't know if I like that particular route, but that would be a way of changing game state. And that's because I don't know if that I want to go that route, because I, as a game design principle, try not to penalize characters for being active on their turn. I see that in certain games, and I'm always aware of it when it happens. If I'm sitting there playing that kind of game, if a player should take an action, I mean, I have a general bias that if it's your turn during the game, you should act and you should take an action because it's your turn. But then I see sometimes where the game system makes making an action too risky, or otherwise will penalize somebody for taking an action. So, should I do this, or should I do this, or no, I'll just stay. And to me, that is, on the whole, a game design failure, because if it's your turn, I want that person to act. I want that person to do something. I want that player to be agentive during that turn. So if you end up with a situation where, well, I could attack, and if I hit, I could damage the guy, but if I miss, I'm really going to open myself up to some kind of damage. That's why I'm thinking there that that might be that might penalize players for acting. But still, with the general idea, that is a way to change the game state even on a miss. So I said, even if you have a particular player's turn end up in a null result, and I think this is very important. Oh, see, Sable says, heck, even 13th Age and Pathfinder have ways of tackling the same problem. And so there you go. So, but I said, even if you have a particular player's turn end up in a null result, that should change the game state for the next player. And this is an informational thing. So I don't think that if new information comes out as a result of the null result, then that's necessarily a null. Like, I wouldn't count that as a null result. I don't think that a null result means only that something changed on a character sheet or something. For instance, this is my example. For instance, if the attack on the big bad evil guy was ineffective because it is immune to the attack type, and this information was just learned as a result of an attack. I attack. Oh, your fire attack bounces harmlessly off. That was information that was learned, which should allow the next player to attack differently or use some kind of different strategy than they otherwise would have, and would also allow you to adopt a different strategy on your next turn. So information gain, and I think a lot of people misunderstood that, maybe didn't get to that or whatever, misunderstood that in the comments, that if you gain information on your turn, that is a change of game state, right? Okay, information has been gained and people are going to be acting differently when their turn comes around again. So I said, so what do you think about it? How do you handle null results in your game designs? Do you also try to eliminate them, or do you think combat needs those misses to feel realistic? I just sorted by top. So let's just go by the top discussion here. So the top discussion is by HTPDINSW. And it says, or this person says, why would this be controversial? Well, I think it's great that the top comment is somebody who says, I don't agree with this. I think this is a common sentiment that I just don't agree with. Missing is not a null result. Nothing didn't happen. I missed. That's an event. It is not nothing. It changes things by providing feedback and information. It doesn't change hit points, but it changes the psychology of the fight. It also has a legitimate opportunity cost. Attacking and missing meant I did not do this other thing. Well, let me read the whole comment in entirety, and then that way we have the entire context, and then we'll go back. So alternatives that make every attack hit actually encourage true null results. If every attack will hit me, then I need to make sure attacks don't happen. I can't meaningfully defend. I can't take chances and expose myself unless I know the action I take will remove theirs. And the best way to do that is to actually avoid fighting entirely. If anything, the idea of a miss being a null result feels like a case against static target numbers and in favor of active defense and action rolls. Now, I do want to post specifically about active defense and action rolls because historically, I've been very in favor of active defense, coming from a Hero Quest background. I also wonder if this can be solved with just psychology, with reframing the sequence. Instead of the default being a miss, the default assumption is that you're going to be hit and you need to prevent that. Okay, so Bannister Nicholas, hello, Bannister Nicholas, says, this works only if combat stats are unknown. I don't give out stats for my game. Players learn from a miss. But if games have full open stats, you know your chances, so a null is meaningless. Okay, I wrote a response, and it might have actually been to you on Reddit. I wrote a response about exactly that. So I was saying that adding or giving the player characters additional information isn't a null result. Even if you didn't inflict hit point damage, okay, that's fine. Did you get additional knowledge from that attack? And I wrote someplace in here that one of the ways you could do that is if, for instance, let's just go to standard Dungeons and Dragons and say that the AC, some game masters are adamant that I'm not going to give out the AC or what number that you need to hit for this particular monster. Okay, so if I need to roll an 18 to hit, but the game master hasn't given me that information and I roll a 16 and the game master just goes miss. Okay, so I do have information now that, okay, I need to roll higher than a 16 in order to hit. I don't know what I have to roll, but I have to roll higher than a 16 because the 16 missed. And then, okay, everybody else at the table presumably knows that as well. 16 equals miss. People go, okay, we got to roll higher than that. My question then in game design would be, how does that information change the player's action? Because some game systems will have ways for players to increase their hit, right? Okay, I got to roll higher than a 16, so I need to flank them. Okay, or I need to attack them from the rear, or I'm going to create an advantage like in Fate or something like that, which is going to increase your attack power, right? Then I would say that that information has communicated something that will allow them to actually make a different decision on the next round. If your game system, and this is the game design subreddit, right? So we're talking about game design. If your game design doesn't actually have those options for your players, then it's not providing them a meaningful opportunity to change. Because if you don't have, it doesn't have to be flanking and rear attacks or, something like that, but it could be. If it doesn't have those options and the player is just like, well, next time I'm going to need to roll this D20 better. That's not really a meaningful way to, not a meaningful decision on their next turn. So I that's what I would say, that it depends on the game's design. I'm hiding information from the players. They're going to get information about, a 16's a miss, whatever. They're going to need to use the game mechanics I've designed to overcome that. And actually, I talk about that a lot with Fated Edge design. That's exactly what I talk about design, because I say I don't want the players to be overcoming the problem just because they got lucky. I want them to be overcoming that number, a number on the roll, hence that obstacle or that monster, because of the actual decisions they make at the gaming table. So we can have those actual decisions, give you, bonuses or whatever to get you to the target number that you think you've got to get to. What do you think about that, Bannister? We'll see. Let me know what you think. Sable says, I'm struggling to think about what information is gained from a miss in modern D&D other than an attempt to figure out the monster's AC. Well, that's what I just talked about. In my experience, a monster's AC rarely remains obfuscated for more than a single round of combat, unless it's a large PC party. After that number is known, a miss is just a miss. Right. I think I just talked about all that. I'll just call you T-Dog. T-Dog with DC 20 says, I would love it if my players use the proper actions to analyze creature target, but it's so neglected in the game. Right. So I think we're getting to the issue of that. So yeah, that would be great. That would solve kind of the issue that I'm talking about and kind of things if players used options to increase their attack value. But yes, often that is a neglected part of the game, and that might be from a game design perspective. So Bannister says, yes, my own system does that. Hits can be player influenced to let players learn more from the hits or more damage, or modify the next hit or include skills. Okay, so right there. So yeah, so even you're not taking away hit points. That's not what I'm talking about. You've gained information. So yes, okay. So I think we're on the same page there, Bannister. So I think basically that's my response to HTTPD NSW here. I don't think it is not the case that what he writes here, if it is a he, it's not nothing. I mean, this is okay. There's a Chinese, like Chinese proverb sense that, well, to fail to achieve something or to fail to act is an action, or whatever, or to choose not to act is to take an action, whatever. But beyond the philosophical approach, he says it changes things by providing feedback and information. And I don't think that's necessarily true at all. It may be true in certain game systems. It may be true, but it is not a universal truth, I think, like NSW presents it here. I don't think that's universally true. It would be true in, I think, a better designed game, but it's not a universal truth. Right. If every attack will hit me, then I need to make sure attacks don't happen. Or you need to have additional options. I can't meaningfully defend, but and he says, and the best way to do this is actually to avoid fighting entirely. But we've talked about this a lot on this channel with the different streams that, well, that depends on the game system itself that you're designing. Combat as war versus combat as sport, for instance, we've talked about that quite a bit. So the game design might actually encourage you to avoid fighting. And to solve problems by other ways. So, I mean, I see what NSW is trying to say here, but I don't think these things are universally true as he presents them. They could be true. Mars, I'm not gonna go through every sub comment, but since this is the top one, Mars Alter, who is a top 1% commenter, says that's an excellent point. Agreeing with this, agreeing with the top comment here. The problem which most people seem to be having is that they're looking, I think it's at the mechanic after it's been resolved, which isn't useful because nobody is making decisions right then. Maybe I don't understand. The problem which most people seem to be having is that they're looking at the mechanic after it's been resolved, which isn't useful because nobody is making a decision right then. Let me see. To get a better view of the mechanic, we should consider it at the point where the player is making their decision before they attack. The possibility of missing or of hitting, but not dealing as much damage as you need, is what makes the decision to attack a meaningful one. Every action you take has a chance of solving your problem, and evaluating those odds is how we decide on one course or a different one. If you fail to hit an enemy 3 times in a row, that's a very good sign that you should be reevaluating those odds and choosing a different course of action. Maybe. Again, that's I don't think any of those things that were written right there are universally true across games. It depends on the way the game is designed. Every action you take has a chance of solving your problem. I mean, that's not the case in situations if you're trying to kill something and you're in an inflationary hit point situation and you just can't deal enough damage to kill your opponent, for instance. Your action that you're taking would have no chance of solving your problem. Though that is an argument, I suppose, for something like Roll Master or critical hits that, like, I got to kill this dragon. There's a 1 in 1,000% chance I can kill it right now because I might roll and, expand my numbers and whatever else and kill the dragon in one hit. Then you would have a chance of solving your problem, I suppose, in that. If you fail to hit the enemy 3 times in a row, that's a good sign you should be reevaluating those odds and choosing a different course of action. Maybe, maybe not. Dice are fickle, right? If you got to hit on a 5+ and you've rolled a 2, 1, and a 3, which seems like I do you need to be reevaluating your odds, or are the dice just against you? So, again, these are not universal statements right here. When there are misses, Stray says, when there are misses, it's the storyteller's narrative challenge to describe attacks grazing, bouncing off armor, how the shields or helms even, say, a parry with a sword. Yeah, but I have my opinion on this is that I feel like even games that start like that, oh, hey, describe your miss or describe your hit or do all of that, people stop doing that. And in my experience, they get tired of it if those things don't actually have a mechanical influence on the game. We can spend extra time at the table describing that. But once it's kind of known, that none of what I'm talking about here has any kind of mechanics in the game or influence on the game from that people stop doing that. I know that's not the case at every table, because some people are like, no, I'm really into the role playing this, and like every time, even if I miss, I'm going to give you this amazing description of how I missed and okay, but I don't think that's the typical way that it goes. Sable says, I think people are getting hyper fixated on the to hit roll example and losing sight of the overall game design. That being making sure that each round of combat means something dynamic is occurring rather than everyone standing in a conga line for flanking and not moving because of attack of opportunities. I agree. Bannister says, ever played where the GM rolls all behind a screen, players never know the numbers? I played both ways. I played both, where the numbers are not known, and then also the dice will all be rolled in front of the screen. Let's go one more. King Fotis says, I think the missing link is deadliness. If combat is a foregone conclusion, sure, it's wasted rounds, but so are attacks that auto hit and do 1% enemy health and damage. That's what I was talking about. Is that a significant change of game state? Maybe not, depending on game design. So it's not better. If combat is deadly, every time you don't hit, you go, phew, I survived. You don't get hit, rather, you go, phew, I survived. And every time you miss, you go, bye, now I need to survive another round of his attacks. My game can be very deadly and incidentally also fast, which also probably helps. No one complains about wasted rounds. Let's see. This person says, missing isn't necessarily a null result, but I think it often is. If you spend a resource to attempt to hit and miss, then you're in a game where resource management is key, then missing can be really impactful. I agree. Your change of game state could have been expended resources. If you moved in to make a melee attack and you're now in poor positioning because you failed to kill the enemy you needed to, your miss can change the rhythm of the fight. So yes, I agree. Guilt Peacock gets it here. Yes. Let's go down to what's the next best top level comment here. Okay, so Mandolin the Way says, a lot of comments here arguing in a way that ignores how null results actually play out at the table. I wait 20 minutes, I roll a die, I say never mind, and then I wait 20 more minutes. When a game lets you make 3 meaningful choices per hour, then makes only 1/3 of them do anything, it can absolutely deflate the entire experience. Edit. Almost every comment is on the 20 minutes. If the experience sucks, it's sucking faster doesn't fix things. You just fit in more suck before going home. Oh, I love this comment. I love this comment. Guilt Peacock Sable says, is inadvertently maybe advocating for diceless RPGs. Maybe. Okay, but I love this comment because I have been in games like this and it does suck. That I am a huge advocate of fast turns. I hate the 20-minute wait or 20-minute turn that somebody might take. And actually, I was reading, by the way, I read James and Michael's book, the 4D handbook, last night, and I wrote a book review for it, and I posted that to Reddit as well. And there's so many great things that make me think about a lot of things in that book. They did a good job articulating ways of potentially role playing better if you want to pursue the 4D avenue. I'm not saying role playing better overall. I'm just saying for those who want to portray a 4D kind of approach, they advocate short turns. And they describe that in the 4D kind of thing. And because they say, don't do things like, they gave things names, like don't do turns by committee. Don't do trial turn with the trial turn, or test drive. You can't do test drive turns. And yes, I see that so much at the table. It slows gameplay down so much that, yeah, if your game is doing this, I completely agree with Mandolin the Way here. This is a major problem. Almost every comment, and then, so people got fixated, I guess, on the 20 minutes. Does it feel any better to wait 20 minutes, roll a die, get low damage, reduce the enemy health by a sliver, and wait 20 more minutes? No, somebody got caught. Yeah, they're getting caught up on the 20 minutes because this is just, so there was no material or significant impact on game state. That's it. You're right. So, okay, that actually, there I am right there saying that's why I would give the principle of material or significant kind of change. Because yes, okay, so Mandolin the Way, I like your comment here, but yes, so then people got kind of fixated on something. The problem is the 20-minute turns. And I would say that I am okay with having more null results if you're getting a turn every 90 seconds or 2 minutes than if you're taking longer than that. I mean, I think that's true. And I even wrote that in the comments here, that I think that the length of your turn and what happens on a turn, and whether or not a null result is acceptable are linked when you're doing game design. Those two things are linked. The longer the turns go, and that's, part of your, what you're designing as a game designer. So if you're going to have long turns, you'd better have significant turns. If you're going to have shorter turns, you can deal with additional null results. So those two things I definitely think are related when you're doing game design. But see, this person says, if your only interaction with the fight was to roll a die once every 20 minutes, then it's your failure, or at least choice, where you might be you personally, or more likely the broader you, including the gaming group and the GM. The game is not just about making choices and rolling dice. Yes, those are of course important, but other things are important too. Listening to a GM's description of a scene includes 0 choices or rolls, but is a critical part of the game. Communicating with the other players involves no choice of my own? How would communicating not involve your own choice, but is a critical part of the game? Here's a thesis. Turn-based tabletop games are fundamentally designed for people who enjoy listening. Is that true? Someone who derives satisfaction from simply watching another player's turn is always going to have a better time at the table than someone who doesn't derive such satisfaction. Depends on how that person's playing their turn, right? T-Dog says just got started down the 4D road. Well, he's not in the chat right now, but ordinarily James Bacon and Mike, who wrote that book, are in the chat. We're going to talk about their book, and I'm going to have them on the channel and do a live stream with them. There's a lot I think I want to talk about, and I just have been doing other things like applying for jobs in other cities and things like that, which have taken me away from streaming recently, but I'm trying to get things done. My earliest design team test decided that combat rolls need to be as fast as swinging a sword. I would love to see that happen. We've talked about Nimble, and I love the Nimble. I'm a huge fan of the Nimble design book. I think a lot about it. Now, so some people go, oh, well, then just go play Nimble. Well, I would like to play Nimble. I haven't gotten to actually sit down at the table yet. But, being part of the RPG design scene, that game, I think, gets a lot right. There's still some other things that I would like to have in my game, but, I think that there's a lot to be said about the Nimble game design philosophy. What's supposed to have happened? I think this is what's supposed to have happened in those 20 minutes is that you have had 20 minutes of social interaction. You could design it that way, but man, I have been at tables where that is certainly not the case. I'm sitting there listening to somebody try to figure out what to do on their turn. I'm not having a social interaction. And in fact, if I try to, and arguably even, according to some player philosophies, I'm not supposed to be saying anything. It's their turn. They're trying to figure out what to do. I don't think that's a fundamental core of the game. I think this is not universally correct again. So yeah, so people, people are, yes, almost every comment is on the 20 minutes. If the experience sucks, it's sucking faster doesn't fix things. And other people, there was a comment about that too. Let's go down to the next level. You can go in. I put the link to this thread in the description. So if you want to read all the comments, you can. Into the Odd, Mythic Bastion Land. We haven't covered that one here on this channel. Electric Bastion Land and Ritter, and we loved Ritter here on this channel. That's a hidden gem as far as I'm concerned. Are all games I know that use automatic hits in combat. Damage is done with weapon dice. Armor protects. Additional spell effects with some dice results. Yes. Right. Yes. So as far as automatic hits in combat go, yes. And Ritter is clearly a diamond in the rough. Okay, get to a disagreement. Sard Scroll says, I disagree on 2 fundamental counts. First, that a null state is a bad result. Fundamentally, your null state is reached by a failure and a success occurring. The foe missing is effectively a success of the PC's defense, be those active or passive. Second, the null result of a miss in combat does have a negative cost associated. The party has to endure an additional turn round of combat. Well, yes, in some ways, I think that's what some of the other commenters were saying. That, oh my God, I decided what my turn was. I rolled the dice, nothing, I wasn't able to make anything. And now I have to endure another round of this combat. Yes, that's true. Yes. Now, I agree that the every turn just do the same basic attack pattern is a problem. Good, yes. But that is because of a lack of player input in the game, not because of an action failing to alter the game state. It also may be a design flaw if you don't have additional options. This is a game design forum, after all. It might not be a lack of player input. It might be a game design flaw. Instituting additional penalties for combat failures as a basic rule, it's always possible to have a specific challenge, creature, etc., with a failure inducing a penalty, means that the safest option is always the most likely to succeed, rather than balancing change to succeed with effect and allowing players multiple best options based on potentially shifting reward evaluation. Okay, it gets even worse when applied to out-of-combat encounters, where encouraging the interesting, risky option over the boring, reliable option, where the former only has a potential for negatively changing the status quo and increases inter-party tension, even if every choice can preclude other players playing to their strength and chance to shine. It also overloads the design space of fumble critical systems, as well as degree of success systems that also have degrees of failure. I want to talk about degrees of failure. Might have to post about that later. That's on the subject. Excuse me, on the list of things to talk about. But okay, I mean, I think I generally agree. Look at this. Yes, if you like your game design, I think, yes, should bias you toward an interesting option rather than a boring option. Yeah, I mean, I agree. So when you're doing game design, bias toward the interesting. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think this is fair, though, V1 Carium says, because the game state simply leaves you with attacking repeatedly as the best result. This is a common byproduct of a game state that doesn't change due to failure, since just because you missed doesn't mean the situation has changed from 30 seconds ago when you decided attacking was your best option. Hey, that's basically what I'm saying. It's a problem. It can be a problem because of game design failure, right? Okay. This was one of the earliest comments here. Interlocutor X says, I wonder if it's a cultural thing, this obsession with efficiency in play and fear of failure, which nothing I wrote in that had to do with a fear of failure. But there are a lot of modern game designers that seem to think what people want are games where everything moves as quickly through the content as possible, and no one ever experiences a moment of failure of any sort. And I did write back and I said, this is a completely, well, Outback Sam came to my defense too. I don't think I agree that OP's point necessarily constitutes a fear of failure, which absolutely not. This is a complete misunderstanding of my point. Nothing I was advocating here says that you shouldn't experience a moment of failure of any sort. That those kinds of comments are just complete misunderstandings of the whole point. Stray says there should be maybe a limit of turns you can be in combat, so it's like a stamina resource race against the clock. Yeah, right. That would be one way, that like you have to expend stamina in order to attack. And so, yes, you're imposing a cost upon a missing in combat because you're wearing out faster. Right. That would be a way to do it. That would be a way to prevent there from being a null result. You're expending resources by the attack. Yeah, it could be. It just cheapens the game experience. Yeah. So that wasn't, oh, right. So this person, I said, came to my defense, and I actually said that was right. The core thesis is that if it's boring, if the players have to react, the core thesis is that it's boring if the players have to react to the same game state every round. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to fail. It just means that failure should change the playing field in a meaningful way. I love what this person said right here. So this is Outback Sam. Yes. And I think this is one of the ways that perhaps I could word something better. because I think Outback Sam did that right here. The core thesis is that it's boring if the players have to react to the same game state every round. I love this. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to fail. It just means that failure should change the playing field in a meaningful way. I love that. I love that. And then, yes, I want to talk about failing forward specifically, which we have done on this channel before, but I want to write that up. And, I probably need to get back to just making, I keep saying I'm going to do that, getting back to making just straight YouTube videos, because this does relate to fail forward. Right. A lot of systems interpret this as fail forward, and we need to talk about that, but that's not the only path. If anything, I'd argue that you could also solve the problem by making failure more punitive. Right. Failing forward is one way to handle this. It's not the only way, but yes, I thank you, Outback Sam. Let's go up and see what the next thing is. Bannister says, if we start deep diving into the 4 reasons of games, entertainment versus analysis has been at odds for decades. So we'll have to filter for people wanting fun versus those who want to progress the numbers. I mean, yeah, of course, everybody's welcome here on the channel to, discuss things in the live stream. Fun did come up in this analysis. I'm not sure if it's, I'm not sure where, but fun did come up. I think I'm going to have a bias for fun in my game design and my approach. I'm going to have a bias for fun because actually I think somebody wrote, not everything has to be fun. Yes, which I do agree with. Yes. Not everything has to be fun, but I'm talking about a tabletop role-playing game. I realize that sometimes, I have to go clean the kitchen, and that's not fun, and that's just something I have to do and get it over with. But when you're talking about playing something like a tabletop role-playing game, I do think that in the context of game design and gameplay, it should be fun. So I guess I have a bias for fun, especially when game time is limited. People are busy, especially if you're adult gamers. You've got 2 or 3 hours, to play, 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. I have a bias for that time being fun. That's what makes people want to come back, in my experience. If you sit down for 4 hours and nobody has fun, they're not coming back next week. That's the way I look at it. So, but Agriculture Soup says, I think this thread highlights really well how good game design can be subjective. I would agree with OP that any turn a player has that would have had the same outcome as I skip my turn isn't fun for me. I think that's completely valid. It's clear, though, that some people require failure states like those to have fun. Again, I'm not against failure states. This is, again, a complete misunderstanding. I'm not against failure states to have fun, though I wonder to what degree. If a game only lets a player take one action, one die roll to determine success, and combat took as long as 5e, would it still be enjoyable? So many games these days seem to address this issue in a few ways. Auto hit mechanics, fail forward, multiple actions per turn, much quicker combat, etc. I think as long as the issue is being addressed in some way so that I'm not waiting 10 minutes for a 35% chance to skip my turn and then think that can only... I think as long as the issue is being addressed in some way so that I'm not waiting 10 minutes for a 35% chance to skip my turn, then I think that can only be a good thing. Yeah, I agree. So right. I would try to avoid that. Yes. Sable Phoenix says fun is also highly subjective. True. Yes, absolutely. Tabletop RPGs don't actually fit neatly into the game category. Well, depends on your definition of game. And I have a definition of game, and we've talked about that. But let's not go there. It actually doesn't fit neatly into the game category because I think it is very clearly a game. We just use that language as a shorthand. They're a lot more like a ritual with the shaman directing a vision quest to the devotees of a mystic art than a pure game. Now, to me, it completely fits my definition of game. Bannister says, just in reference that D&D was an offshoot of statistical war games, so today there's an underlying stat analysis in the rules. Well, that's okay, but see, for some people, that may be fun. If the people who enjoy the underlying stat analysis are enjoying that's why, Sable Phoenix says that fun is highly subjective. I'm not disagreeing with that. People are, but I think there are probably very few people who are doing highly in-depth stat analysis for an RPG that they're playing, and they just absolutely hate it. Like, that's probably not what's happening. They're probably doing it because they derive some type of enjoyment from it. Funny thing is that I skip my turn fail state is even not that bad. Yeah, this person, it's clear though some people require fail states like these to have fun, though I wonder to what degree. People are so used to failure equals nothing happened. They should see anyone who don't like it as they don't like to fail. Failure state should be more fun as well. Yeah, failure state doesn't have to be null. No, that I use the word null very specifically. That's not failure, like in the RPG or the game. Yeah, so that has completely been misunderstood. They take that to not want, thinking that I don't like failure in the RPG. This person again. What up with my gillups? So when I'm talking about just the typical situation of, well, I miss. If you are missing something, maybe you'd want to change your tactics. If the game system allows you to change your tactics, right? That's part of your game design. If the game system, if you are missing because you chose the wrong thing, then yes. If you are missing because the die rolled badly, then there's no tactic for you to change up. To me, that's an incredibly important part of game design. I want basically exactly that in something like the full fated edge. If you're missing, then the player needs to make another decision for their character, right? And take a different action, which will increase their probability of success. But you can only do that if your game design allows that and has that as part of the core rules. So, like, yeah, this person says, I once missed 7 attacks in a row over 4 rounds of combat. My DM asked me, why don't you try anything else? Change your tactics. Because I know the game, know the math, and know that what has the calculable highest chance of success. I was considerably more likely to hit each with one of those attacks than I was to succeed at doing anything else. That's why I built this character to do and to be good at. And if any of those 7 attacks had landed, I could have spent a resource to guarantee the enemy would die instantly. If the dice say nothing higher than a 6 7 times in a row, then nothing that I could do would work. Trying another option, which would also fail in a 6, but which also fail in a 10, wouldn't help. There we go. D-Bones. I don't agree that a miss is a null result, but it's not necessarily not a null result. As in, if I attack you and miss you, that's not a null result. At the beginning of my turn, I had an action over you, and at the end of my turn, you have an action over me. I've shifted into a worse position. I mean, maybe. But I'm definitely was talking about the, if you're talking about that now you're about to be attacked, then sure. Yes, absolutely. If you're talking about, like we've been talking about, I missed and now I've got the opponent has an advantage. That's also different. Give a player more things to do on a turn. Yes. Okay. Pathfinder 2. Here's talking about Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2e is pretty great about this. Players get 3 actions on their turn, and combat features a lot more movement in general. So you're probably doing something on your turn. That could be positioning. Yes, it could be. If positioning is highly important in the game design and you're moving around, then yes, that could be changing the game state. It could be. Absolutely could be. Let's see. How about letting the players describe their failure? Well, they can, but does that have any type of material impact on the game? Maybe, maybe not. I believe it was Bannister. Was it Bannister was saying that, yeah, if you do a good description, then I'll give you a bonus. Okay. Let's see. This Truth Nut says, this might have been the first comment on it. I abhor type of game theory. A neutral or null result is a result. I agree in a philosophical sense. Every roll does not have to make the plot change or make something happen, etc. If you boil all outcomes down to win or lose, you massively cheapen those outcomes and risk removing tension entirely, which is nothing like what I said. This is one of those completely misunderstanding the entire point here. And And Mathologies comes in. It's not fun to wait 4 minutes for my turn, fail an attack roll, accomplish nothing, and then wait 4 more minutes to try the same thing again. At least it's not for me. So I don't know. Maybe we can understand what the general drift of this was. Clearly, people were very interested in talking about it. Let's see if we can find some other interesting comments. Yeah, well, I think this was it. In combat, many times within a round, nothing changes. So what? Does it really matter? Does everything need to be fun and exciting? Well, again, I would say in my game design, there should be a bias for fun. So I would say, yes, let's try to have a bias for fun. But other people, I will admit, there may be other people out there who will be like, I played tonight and I didn't have any fun, but that's okay. Okay, that's fine. This person says, Mechanical Catbuster says, I think part of the problem is that a successful result is also too uninteresting. That could be part of your game design. At least in 5e, not landing a hit feels like a null state because landing the hit is also pretty inconsequential. I agree. That's bad game design too. So I completely agree with this. A number goes down, the fight continues. Right. If you can attack for D8 and the opponent's got 84 hit points, also the successful attack feels like a null. I agree. In that regard, the always hit games feel like they're making peace with the null state rather than removing it. It depends on how consequential the hits are. I mean, that's part of the game design. I feel like I'm seeing people conflate a single miss in a turn where literally everyone misses, which I call a miss fest, right? Which I brought that out because I was distinguishing as well between a turn and a round. If I miss, but another party member kills the monster I was attacking, then I'm not making the same decisions next turn. Exactly. Because the game state is clearly changed. Or if everybody misses and the game master is like, okay, now the wall is knocked down and a new monster appears. Okay, everybody missed, but now the game state has changed. That might be bad GMing, but, there you go. Hacks and Code says, I disagree with the premise because in many cases, what the PCs want is a null result. They want to hold the line at minimum risk while the innocents or fragile other PCs escape or prepare, execute some action, loot the room or whatever. Again, I think this is a misunderstanding. Let's see. Bannister says, it's all about player agency for me. If a player has a null result because of game design, we should change it. If it's just a player being unaware of choices, is it intentional from the GM or plot or just lack of knowledge of how to play? If it came about because the player chose a suboptimal result, that's different from your game design, I think. At a minimum, but see, this is not anything that I would consider a null result. If you're like, okay, fighters, these two fighters hold the doorway because the people behind you have to loot the room and escape. Yes, the fighters may go into like pure defensive mode if that's an option during the game. We're going all out defense because we're going to hold this door against this horde of orcs that are coming in because the people behind me have to search and look for some kind of item and then we're all going to run. If that's going on behind you, just saying that the fighter is successfully holding the line while that's things changing during the game. This person says that, other people's turns are interesting as well. I mean, they can be. Sometimes they're boring, but they can be interesting. Other times they can be boring. You're missing an entire branch of design options here, and that's miss triggers. Okay, I missed the attack. Do I get to retreat? Do I get a temporary bonus to my next roll? Do I get chip damage or even half damage? Do I force a party block? Okay, right. So, I mean, this person's agreeing. There's a lot of other things to think about. HP bloat. I'm not really sure. HP bloat is something I want to talk about, but I don't think that this particular topic had to do with HP bloat. Oh, somebody agrees. Data not. You can see how low we have to go in order to actually get to somebody who agrees as a top level comment. So Data Knox says, I broadly agree. I think the key is some kind of countdown that brings things to a crisis. People have mentioned Into the Odd, and I think the key misunderstanding that many people have is that Into the Odd hit protection, HP, is not physical damage. In fact, in D&D, supposedly, hit points are not physical damage. Blah, blah. The cipher system, yeah, we've looked at that. Let's see. Oh, this person says, I reject the entire premise. Missing is fine in my games. That's because sometimes you just miss. Characters aren't meat bags that get slapped every turn until it's over. The solution is to not have overly long turns. This person just said needless complexity. Okay, can you please elaborate? How is it needless complexity to have actions go on your turn? Heath Stray says, remember ICRPG and how much we were missing at the end? It was kind of epic. I'm glad I got that stem menu at the end there. Yeah, I do remember that. I mean, I've played a lot of index card, and I've also done a lot of missing in index card RPGs, but I still think about that. And, there are times when we've been playing the index card RPG and the dice have gone against us. And I think this would have been just so much better and more dramatic if this action had worked. Like, here's this action that this person has got, and really they should be able to do this, and it would propel the game in an interesting direction towards success or towards failure. I don't know. Again, this is not about just, avoiding failure. Here's something that could happen and the players could do, and it would change the game up in some way, and it would in an interesting way. And then the dice just, oh no, that didn't happen. I'm like, and I've thought about that even during index card RPG. That's like, here we are again, rolling a flat D20, which in generally speaking, as we've talked about a lot, I don't like. Even in situations where I think that the player should have been able to accomplish that task, ultimately for good or bad results, and the dice are against it, and it didn't happen. At those times, I often think that the game master would be better to say, yes, that works. You're able to do that. Now, like I said, maybe that thing would be actually end up being a terribly bad thing for you that you did, but that would be a much more interesting result than just saying, oh, the dice say that didn't happen. I have thought about that while playing Index Card RPG. I like that. Every die roll should change the game state. I like that. Now, that may not actually be possible, in a technical sense. But the idea, some people in some games specifically say, don't roll the dice unless it's significant, right? Don't roll the dice unless it's significant. So that's kind of what I think this person's implying. If there isn't going to be some kind of consequence to your failure, don't bother rolling the dice. Only roll the dice when it's consequential. Partial successes, we're going to have to talk about later. Let's see. Null result is a real issue in tabletop RPG. Thief rolls to lockpick a door, fails, nothing happens. What happens in combat is not a null result, though. Due to its tight nature with everything costing rounds and actions and sometimes other resources, missing has a real tangible effect. Not in all games. But yes, it would be nice to direct your design so that that's true. Nah, OP man, this is just another symptom of having no or low patience or appreciation of actual danger. Like if two snipers are going at it, it's not like they can be sniping successfully every turn. If anything, both of them missing every turn up to the 10th turn adds tension. Yeah, this is a failure of understanding again. I've nowhere said they need to be sniping successfully every turn. Well, all right. So if you want to read more going down here, lots of people disagreed with me. I put the link in the description. I'm going to try to stream tomorrow. I may not be able to, but I'm going to try. But Sable says, it might be helpful to edit the original post to clarify moving toward reaching a fail state is still a change of state, which is a good game design. This has nothing to do with avoiding failure. Maybe that's it. I like that. So maybe I can edit the post and I can say moving towards or reaching a fail state is still a change of state, which is good game design. This has nothing to do with avoiding failure. I think I might do that. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for coming out. I didn't know if there'd be anybody here on a Thursday night, but I appreciate it. This was a fantastic conversation. I enjoyed it. I would like to do more like this. But I will talk to everybody later. Maybe see you tomorrow. Check the Discord server. If I can, I'll put up the, if I'm going to stream, I'll put this up. Well, at least an hour early or something like that. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful night. Go forth, be creative, be constructive. I will see you later. Bye, everybody.